And Aaron Judge, he's blossoming into one of Major League Baseball's bright young stars. With this first month of the season, he hit, 10 dingers in the month of April? Joe Girardi pulled the trigger on a fairly lofty comparison for Judge.
He's a little bit like Derek, to me. He's got a smile all the time. He loves to play the game. You always think that he's going to do the right thing on the field and off the field. When you look at him, he's got a presence about him. He plays the game to win all the time, and that's the most important thing. It's not about what you did that day. And I understand that's a big comparison. But I remember Derek when he was young. And he grew into that leadership role.
Whoa, Dylan. Boy,
He's a lot like Lou Gehrig and Mickey Mantle with Ruth's ability to hit.
Hop behind the wheel
Joe.
of the car and, let's not just pump the brakes. Let's remove
he's crushing
remove the throttle from the car. No need for the throttle in this car. Okay. Now, through their first 185 plate appearances, Judge obviously has superior numbers outside of the batting average. But you tell me, does Girardi need to pump the brakes, or do we just need to squint to see 20 years down the line one of the greatest Yankees ever in Aaron Judge?
Let's clarify what Joe said, okay? Because at first when I heard there were comparisons made to Jeter, I said, Joe, what are you doing? You know firsthand how difficult that is to heap on a young player. But if you really take by the specific language of what he said, literally, he's speaking of nothing to do with his baseball skill. He's simply speaking of his mentality, of his leadership abilities, the fact that he loves the game, that he's kind of a big kid that always has a smile on his face. You remember early on and all throughout Derek's career, he came up, he called skipper Joe Torre Mr. Torre, and Joe talked about how funny that was. He's like, I'm a grown-ass man. Everyone else is a grown-ass man. Guy's acting like he's my son's friend over for a sleepover. Mr. Torre, can I have a glass of milk before bed? That's the way Derek was. He was very respectful, but very, very much a big kid playing the game, loved the game, smile on his face, nowhere on earth he'd rather be. I think that's what Joe's talking about with Aaron Judge. The fact that he's always so upbeat, he's always so positive, and the fact that because of his great play, he's become sort of a quasi-leader because he's a force in the middle of his team. But that the leadership stuff isn't, hey, I need you to take third on that. We got to go first and third. You back him up. Come on, you do this. The fact that the leadership comes from a more positive mentality, keeping everybody upbeat.
Sure.
And for neither of us or very few people out there watching who are around the Yankees every single day in that clubhouse, how are we to say that Joe's wrong? I think Joe would be, and Joe was around Jeter all through his career.
Right.
I think the comparison Girardi is making is fair from nothing to do with a playing perspective. Right. But Joe's got to be careful because immediately we're going to see that and make the connection to playing.
Right.
And that's just too much to heap on a young player for how much Jeter has meant to the Yankees organization. And hopefully Judge can mean just as much, but it's just too much to put on a young player in terms of their baseball skills.
Jeets win, Roy? Did he win Rookie of the Year?
I believe he did, yes.
All right, Aaron Judge, this is his rookie season, technically still rookie eligible, so if he wins Rookie of the Year, even if we are talking about playing, so far Joe Girardi's on track, 1 out of 20 seasons.
You know what, away from that big ballpark that swallowed up the Bronx, if he's got a couple of nice-looking ladies on his arm walking around, with some of the starlets of NYC,
yes.
Then maybe more comparisons can be drawn. Just not in terms of baseball skill.
All right, well, let's bring in our 120 closer and commish. The gravy train is pulling back in to the rally on Twitter. Danny Graves joining the conversation. I know you heard us talking about what Joe Girardi said, and even though I'm not supposed to ask you about it, I will real quickly. Fair for Girardi to invoke the name of Derek Jeter, as Dylan said, not talking about the ability to play, but the way that he carries himself and loves the game of baseball.
I understand Dylan's point. But that's blasphemy. You don't say that. You don't compare a kid that's been in the big leagues for 2 months to Derek Jeter. You just don't do it. First of all, obviously the play is not going to be there. He can be as humble as he wants to be off the field. He can be a leader, but he's still not Derek Jeter until he wins 18 world championships and plays for 20 years and goes to the Hall of Fame. That to me, it's really not fair to say that about the kid. And he's not as good looking as Derek Jeter. So bottom line, I think it's a bad comparison.